Page 133 continued. The moon half veiled, half unveiled the superstructure of the summer house and disclosed the form of a fat yogi with shaven head, swathed in an orange-colored robe, staring with unblinking eyes at the fountain. The yogi had assumed the sacred posture of the lotus seat, with legs crossed and the hands resting like newly opened flowers on his knees. Before him crouched an old woman dressed in a somber grey apron and a pigeon-coloured skirt, and a young woman clad in all the finery of her bridal dress. Both seemed to be waiting for the yogi's trance to break. Munnu got up and tiptoed towards the divine. "And what may be your business, O Brahmacharya, at the place where the yogi meditates on God? You should be playing with children of your age." "Yogi ji," answered Munnu, "tell me why you sit here so still and without moving an eyelid." Go away, you little fool," whispered the old woman. "Shanti, Shanti," the yogi said, lifting his hand with a deliberate saintliness and spiritual grace that belied the smile on his curled lips. "He is a good portent, mother. He is the image of the child that shall be born to your daughter-in-law. God has listened to my prayers and to yours. Never turn away the messenger of God." End of page 133. Now page 134. "I too seek God, Yogiji," said Munnu impetuously. "Teach me to seek God. I want to walk the path." "You are a child yet," said the yogi, "but come, we will make you a disciple, and you may rise to be a saint if you serve your guru." "A teacher is what I want," said Munnu, looking at the fruit offerings heaped up by the holy man. "Come then, lift all the things that lie there and follow me," the yogi said. Then he leant forward to the old woman and whispered, "The full moon night is propitious for the sowing of the seed. Follow this youth with your daughter-in-law at some distance from me. Come to my chabara, Chubara, chabara, beyond the hall of Dhar, Har Das's shrine. Don't follow too close, for the world is suspicious. A respectable distance. Understand, mother?" Again he turned to Munnu and said, "Follow me at a distance of 100 yards and bring those ladies to the back stairs of my rooms. Keep within sight of me and don't lose your way, disciple." Munnu did not know what the yogi intended, but he knew that he himself was out for adventure, and the fruit he held smelled sweet and luscious, and his mouth watered at the sight of the grapes, pomegranates, copper-colored bananas, and ripe mangoes. He did exactly as the yogi had directed. The cavalcade passed through the outskirts of the garden, still like the leaves of the dense foliage of the hedges that made an avenue to the marble hall of the garden door. Munnu felt he had lost sight of the yogi as he turned sharply by the shops of the flower sellers at the gate and entered a dark gully. There he saw him beckoning from a window of the first story of a house which looked down on the crossroads. He waited for the women who had lagged behind and contemplated a tobacconist and betel leaf seller's shop, from which a huge mirror reflected the passing pageant of life at the meeting of the four roads. He would have liked to have bought a betel leaf to chew, a luxury in which he had never indulged, and to smoke a cigarette, also to buy some snuff. But the women came up and Munnu led them down the gully. The yogi had come downstairs to receive them with a hurricane lamp in his hand. He led the way up the dark, narrow stairs and ushered them into what Munnu felt was a palace, with its white sheets and cow-tailed cushions and long tubed hubble-bubbles. End of page 134. Now page 135. "I will go now," said the old woman, "and come back early at dawn, Mahantji." Yes, assented the yogi excitedly. The women went. Munnu stood looking around, embarrassed. My life, do at least lift the apron from your eyes and say a word to me, said the yogi, coming towards the young woman and embracing her. Munnu stared at the man. The scales fell from his eyes and revealed the voluptuary where he had seen the saint. His heart beat with shame. He slipped out of the door to go and catch the old woman and tell her what he had seen. He innocently believed that, like him, she too would be shocked. He did not know that she was a go-between who arranged for the births of sons of God to the wives of the merchant class. Munnu slept the night on the boards of a closed shop in a street near Cat Killer's Lane, not daring to go into Prabha's house for fear of meeting a ghost or being taken for a thief. And in the morning he went to the yard of the railway station, thinking that he would be able to earn enough money for the day by carrying a load from the station to the civil lines as he had done yesterday. The morning was well advanced when he got there, and a slow train had just come in from Lahore with hundreds of passengers, rich men and women who hired Cretans and Tongas, middle-class men who bargained for seats in bamboo carts with loud-mouthed drivers, and peasants who made up their mind to trudge the dusty roads to town with their belongings on their shoulders. Munnu looked round among the excited, eager crowd hurrying to and fro. May I lift your weight, Lalaji? May I lift your weight, Maiji? He tried to work out a theory in his mind that only a miser who did not want to pay for a seat in a carriage would engage him to bear his burden, or a person who had to go somewhere near the station in the civil lines. But he knew that the hire of a seat in a car was only an anna, and he came to the conclusion that even the most miserly of misers would ride, and if he did not ride, he would walk and bear his own burden. End of page 135. Now page 136. Coolie, coolie, some blue uniformed porters were shouting in the hall. Munnu saw two men put trunks and beddings on their heads and walk away. He began to shout, Coolie, coolie. Come here, a call came from the hall. He ran eagerly towards the corner where the order had seemed to come, his bare feet tingling with the heat of the sand in the station yard and his face covered in sweat. He faced a police constable in khaki uniform. Why, oh you illegally begotten, where is your license? The policeman hissed, catching hold of Munnu abruptly by the neck of his tunic. Munnu stood dumb before the constable, his heart beating violently. Answer me, you swine. Where is your license? Said the constable, raising his voice from its first deliberation to a sudden hysterical pitch and waving his baton. Sarkar, Munnu ventured with a fallen face. I? You have no license? You son of a pig, you were deceiving me, said the policeman. I have seen you lift bundles here for a month. You base born? No, Huzur, I have been here only once before, Munnu ventured, able, afraid and making a face as if to cry, for the policeman held him hard by the wrist. You think I am lying then, when I say I have seen you sneaking about for a month, on a month? Said the policeman with mock humility. It must have been someone else, sir, Munnu replied. Someone like me. All we coolies look alike. You scum of the earth, the policeman thundered, twisting the boy's arm. You swine, you trickster, I will put you in the lock-up. Oh no, sir, Munnu cried at the word lock-up, recalling to mind the Kotwali where Prabha was beaten. Get out of here, the policeman said, hitting Munnu on the bottom with his baton. Get away from here, you lover of your sister. Government orders. No coolies are supposed to work here without a license. Munnu capered away as fast as his feet could carry him. End of page 136. Now page 137. and looking back once to see the policeman was smoothing down his uniform and stiffening before he began to strut around again. He began to move forward. The currents of thought and emotion, which had been washed over by the fear of the policeman, slowly emerged from the mainsprings that were welling up in him in defiance of authority. "Who is he, that he should turn me out of the station yard?" he exclaimed to himself. "The swine! He fancies himself to be a god because he is putting on a uniform. My uncle is also a servant of the Angrezi Sarkar. He is not the only one. I am not like Prabha, who let himself be beaten. I shall die rather than let him beat me. I shall live up to the name of my race." He instinctively turned round to measure the intensity of his thoughts, as if the mere act of willed defiance on his part had crushed the policeman out of existence. But he caught sight of the constable strolling towards the opening of the yard. He ran till he entered into the Mall Road in the civil lines, bordered on both sides with European shops. The modern world was fearsome. Approached through the spacious grounds which surrounded the bungalows of Englishmen, impressively empty in contrast to the congested world in which he lived, he felt like the outcast he was. But he liked the prim beauty of the place, its handsome villas, half hidden by hedges, half revealed through sumptuous Gothic verandas, overhung with cane chicks and tutties, tatties, tutties, and pearl bead curtains, inviting the air while warding off the heat. The concrete and stone buildings, clean cut and secure, with their long show of windows of glass. His rudimentary stare explored the exquisite array of glass bowls full of colored water and neatly bottled medicines and powder puffs and soaps and razors in the window of a chemist's shop. But it was beaten back by the hard, shining barrier which made the approach of his imaginary hand past its exterior impossible. He stared fascinated at the series of enlarged photographs of beautiful Angrezi women and children and uniformed men hung by shining brass plates outside the door. At once a wild desire surged up in his heart to see his own face in a brown picture like that of the young Sahib who stood dressed in a miniature suit with a white collar round his neck and a straw hat on his head. But the contrast of the neat way in which the Sahib was dressed and his own dirty body clothed in rags was disheartening. End of page 137. Now page 138. He walked past two Indians dressed in English clothes and wondered whether one needed money or education to become a Sahib. The glimpse of a fat Lala, the long tuft on whose head contradicted his English suit of white tussar as he waited for customers behind the glass window of his shop with its array of silver tea sets and plates and tumblers and huge cups, answered his inquiry. But now he walked on in sheer delight at the elegance of clear-cut building, the polished surfaces of black, blue and fawn-coloured motor cars, gigs and phaetons, which passed without raising any dust on the metal road, at a speed which created the illusion of a quicker rhythm in his own body. "Look where you are going, you black man!" A squeaky little voice fell on his ears suddenly as he was gazing at the jars of English sweets in the windows of Messrs. Jenkins' general stores. A Mem Sahib with a pink white face covered with brown spots, naked according to Indian standards, for her silk dress immodestly exposed her arms, reedy legs and flat bosom, stood before him. "Look where you go," she exclaimed, stiffening and screwing up her nose with apparent distaste. Munnu did not understand the peculiar tone of her bad Hindustani, but guessed from the manner in which she was avoiding contact with the air about him that she considered him unworthy for some reason. As, however, he had developed a strong sense of inferiority before white people on account of his uncle and the Shamnagar Babu's hush-hush manner of respectful attention to the sahibs, he did not become conscious of the insult at all. Instead, he felt happy to have been spoken to by the Mem Sahib, and possessed by the desire and the hope of becoming one day worthy of walking in the same street with people like her, he rushed away to the railway bridge which divides the Sahib's world from the outskirts of the native town. He did not want to recognize any connection between himself and the lepers who whined, "Oh man, give me a pice," as they sat exposing their sores, or with the blind beggars who chanted verses as they swayed their heads up and down. He felt he belonged to a superior world because he had enjoyed the privilege of walking through a superior world. "I have read up to the 5th class," he said to himself to confirm his claim of superiority, "and I have served in a Babu's house where a Sahib once paid a visit." End of page 138. Now page 139. The darker shades of his experience were going to crowd out the bright lights of those two peak points of glory, but he stifled them, ignoring all the memories of his life save the 2 acts of going to school and being in the same room with the Sahib at Shamnagar. The riot of noises at the carriage stand opposite the old caravanserai, however, fell on his ears, and the bewildering multiplicity of sights swamped him. The sunburst, scraggy, bearded peasants waiting for a lorry to start, with their bundles of shopping on their backs, the red-cheeked, ferocious-looking Pathans roaming about in their nattily tied turbans, gold-braided red velvet waistcoats, baggy trousers and thick slippers, selling knives and herbs, the frail Hindu confectioners crouching behind their brass trays of sweetmeats in greasy garments, the cows and buffaloes chewing the cud, the horses snorting and neighing, were all familiar sights and sounds to him and negligible. He did not have to make an effort to prove his eligibility among them. The real India takes everyone for granted. To be a madman looking at the sun, or raving profanities, 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 or a naked ascetic, or a frock-coated, striped-trousered European hiding his nudity in the frigid framework of civilized dress. Munnu regretted that he was not an Englishman, but was soon content to be the barefooted little coolie with the dirty tunic and loincloth and the small tip of a turban on his head. Only the question that shaped itself in his mind was how to find work and where. He did not very much want to go back to the vegetable market, and he did not want to go home, not until Tulsi came back. At any rate, they would have to leave off sleeping there when the month was over. Then what? Tulsi was all right. He can earn his living at the grain market. Munnu thought. I can't. What shall I do? Go away, came the answer. Where? Not back to Shamnagar. He recalled that he had never written to his uncle. So far as he was concerned, Dayaram was dead to him, and he was dead to Dayaram. As he walked along, head bent and absorbed, he heard the sudden beat of a drum. Dhum, dhum, dhum. He looked up and saw a city crier who had come to a standstill by the crossroads outside the temperance hall with a troop of sandwich men bearing huge coloured posters. One showed a woman in Sahib's uniform, decorated with endless medals, flourishing a whip at a pack of ferocious, end of page 139, now page 140, lions, tigers and elephants. Another displayed her as she lay supporting a colossal stone, A third picture, her pushing a carriage full of men with her head. Miss Tarabai, Miss Tarabai, shouted the crier. Miss Tarabai, the female giant, owner of the most spectacular circus in the world, is beginning her last performance in the city of Daulatpur now. Marvelous feats of strength hitherto unseen in the seven worlds. Feats of strength and endurance and power for which she has won trophies from all the kings and queens of Europe. Tamer of wild beasts, queen of artists, take this last opportunity to see her, because she goes to Bombay tonight en route to England and will not come back this side for years. Miss Tarabai, Miss Tarabai, Wonder Woman of the age. And the crier struck the drums again. Dhum, 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 drrrr, dhum, and walked on. I must go to the circus, Munnu decided with a wild delight in his eyes, and I will go to Bombay. He snatched a leaflet from the sandwich men who were distributing it as they followed the barker. It read, outside Madan Lal's theatre by the hall gate, Miss Tarabai, the female Hercules. Most magnificent, most spectacular show on earth. There 50 yards away was the hall gate in red bricks shining cruelly against the glare of the sun, and there 100 yards away, shadowed by the imposing architecture of Madan Lal's theatre, was the vast circus tent. Bombay, Bombay. The word seemed to strike like a pendulum on the town hall in his brain, and as if the reverberations of this note had conjured up all the elements of his life in a deep echo, the pendulum gathered up in its swing and the distant memories of all that he had heard about Bombay. A coolie in the vegetable market, whose brother had gone to work in Bombay, had said that one could earn anything from 15 to 30 rupees a month in a factory there, and that it was truly a wonder city one should visit before one died. The coolie said his brother had exhorted him to save money from that very moment for the fair and work day and night to get there, because once you end of page 140, now page 141, were there was plenty of work. The ships sailed across the black waters too from Bombay, the coolie had said, and there were palm trees and coconut trees in plenty on the Embrasil Isle, among which lived rich southerners and Parsis. It is an island, of course, it is an island. Munnu recollected, having read in his geography book that Bombay was an island on the coast of Malabar. Bombay, Bombay. I shall go to Bombay, he decided. He crossed a dirty ditch by a small garden beyond which the big top of Miss Tarabai's circus stood. He had looked at the handbill and read that the price of the cheapest seat was 8 annas, and he had decided that he was going to see the circus without paying the price of a ticket. I wouldn't waste the rupee Prabha gave me on useless enjoyment like this, he said to himself, feeling the edge of his loincloth in which the silver coin lay knotted.